This is the World Financial Report podcast. My name is Randy Marshall. Joining us is our financial and diamond expert, Harold Siegel. We're taping on March the 1st, 2018. Our time is 8:08 Mountain. You can connect with Harold and speak with him about hard assets, gold, silver, diamonds. We'll talk more about it later in the show. 1-800-432-1022. You can speak personally and privately with Harold. His website is rarecoloreddiamonds.com, rarecoloreddiamonds.com, and get our free weekly newsletter, the companion to the podcast. You can go through it in minutes. You can spend hours. You'll be completely up to date. You'll be on the same page we are and see all the material that we're talking about on a weekly basis. 1-800-432-1022. As we start today's podcast, U.S. dollar at 90.75. Canadian dollar is really taking a hit, a very large hit, 77.86. In fact, last week we were at 78.67. So you can see that the Canadian dollar, and the week before that we were at 79.95. I've been keeping track of all these numbers. Canadian dollar really getting hit. Now gold is at 1307.70. It's been pushed back. A lot had to do with the fact that the new Fed Chairman Powell said that we could see 4 Fed rate hikes in 2018. Also, we had silver at 622, gold-silver ratio still at 80. Platinum 963, palladium 998, WTI 61.29, Brent 64.25, nat gas 269, Bitcoin in the United States 10,782, and in Canadian dollars 13,839. And at the start of the day, the Dow was going to open at about 25,029, S&P 2,713, NASDAQ 7,273, TSX 15,442. And it was a fairly quiet week, although we did have Powell come out and meet with Congress, spoke with them, and he took questions, and we'll talk about that momentarily. But one of the things we did want to get to right off the top, of course, we've mentioned on past podcasts that Harold is a Canadian living in the United States. He lives in Florida and as well spends time in Colorado. He lives about 2 blocks from Parkland School, where there was the mass shooting about a month ago. And they went back to school yesterday, Wednesday. Lawmakers, Trump met with a pile of lawmakers. It was broadcast on television. And if you see what Trump is saying, he basically is willing to take on the NRA, and that will be interesting to see if he really sticks to his guns. But all the lawmakers that were there in that room definitely want changes as soon as possible. And stores, they're coming into line as well. A lot of stores, corporations cutting ties with the NRA. Stores won't allow now a person who's not 21 or without a background check, to buy a gun. And that is obviously a huge start in this whole process. But Harold, here you are living about 2 blocks away. What was it like for those kids on the first day back to school?
Well, it's heartbreaking, to be honest with you. Randy, the kids were petrified. You know, they made the situation as good as possible. There had to be at least 100 police there yesterday morning. Fact is that some people brought rescue dogs for the kids to feel good about, brought some tiny ponies and those type of things, just, to lighten the mood type of thing. The police were there. That was a great thing. But the biggest fear was when the kids went to class and saw those empty desks where their friends are no longer there, was just absolutely heartbreaking. This is really gaining some legs, but again, you're talking about fighting the number one lobby, the NRA. They're very, very difficult to beat. And in actual fact, the NRA came out and they're infuriated over the fact that Dick's Sporting Goods and Walmart, the largest seller of firearms in the United States, both made moves towards, number one, raising the age limit to 21, and that infuriated the NRA. And then Dick's Sporting Goods says that they're no longer going to sell those type of rifles, the AR-15s, the AK-47s, because the owner or the CEO of Dick's came on and said that that the shooter from Parkland actually bought a shotgun through them. So this is what really spurred it on. Now, it wasn't the gun that he used to shoot and kill the 17 people, but he did buy a gun through them before, and this prompted Dick's Sporting Goods, to stop selling those type of weapons and to raise the limit to 21. Believe me, we haven't heard the end of this. The NRA is a very powerful lobbyist, and the fact is they've got over 5 million members. So corporations are somewhat concerned about them. And the fact is that President Trump, when he was fighting for office, was a huge advocate of the NRA, singing their virtues and saying that his kids were major members of the NRA and owned several guns. And now he's going to change his tune? I don't think so. I think that there's going to be issues with this. One of the biggest fears that I have, Randy, is that there's a group within the United States. If we all remember back many, many, many years ago, there was a bombing of an Oklahoma government office, and it was by this guy, Timothy McVeigh. There's a whole group of these Aryan nation people, these white supremacists, these people that are convinced that one day that they're going to go to war against the government. They've got stockpiles of rifles and ammunition and food up in areas in Idaho and in Montana and in those areas. And it's something that there's always been a concern about. It's like a militia, a white militia within the United States. And they always felt that at one time that they were going to go to war against the U.S. government. Believe me, Randy, that this type of situation, when they feel that their rights are being taken away from them, where they're not able to adequately protect themselves, and they'll view the raising of the age limit to 21 as the rights being taken away from them, it could cause a major problem within. In fact, this was something that happened this week that was extremely concerning. I thought that it was an amazing show of strength that corporations were disassociating themselves with the NRA. In actual fact, it was a few airlines that decided to do that. United, I believe, was one of them. Delta came out and said that they're no longer going to offer discounts to NRA members. And what happened as a result of that is absolutely sickening, because the governor, I believe it's the governor of Georgia, where Delta does their business, their main hub is in Georgia. He came out, and after Delta announced that they were no longer going to allow discounts to NRA members, he came out and said, if you don't give discounts to the NRA members, I'm going to reverse the tax laws and the tax benefits that we gave to you if you do this. So here you've got the governor of Georgia threatening a corporation for doing the right thing, and it obviously shows where his loyalty lies. So basically, I'm concerned about what's happening within the United States. The fact is there's been the Sandy Hook shooting, there's been Columbine, there's been countless, there's been Las Vegas, and all these scenarios and all these situations, they just get worse and worse and worse. But this one in Parkland, first of all, it hits very close home to me because I live on the same street as the school, and I know this is our community. It's a small, beautiful, phenomenal community that I've lived in for 25 years and raised my kids and my grandkids here. And to see this happening is just a horrid situation. But to think that these lawmakers and the politicians are not on our side with this thing. One of the things that really impressed me was this young man that went to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and he was up in Tallahassee, and he met with the NRA people, and he met with Rubio, who is a senator here, and he asked outright, just point blank, to Senator Rubio, last year you got over $1 million from NRA. Are you going to continue to take that money from him? And he would not say, no, I'm not taking the money. He says, listen, they buy into my agenda. I don't buy into theirs. Kid says, I'm not asking about your agenda. I'm asking if you're going to stop taking money from the NRA because of what they're doing, and he would not answer that. And then you've got this governor of Georgia that's coming out and saying, to Delta that we're going to take away your tax benefits that we gave to you because of what you're doing towards the NRA. So I think that there could be a major issue within the United States as a result of what's happening. Social media is just out of control with these type of situations, and we all know what social media can do. It can make you or break you. So the fact is that one of the reasons that I'm at this particular point going to start buying gold again is because of this scenario that's happening within the United States. I just don't see this thing getting better. I don't see the NRA backing down, and I don't see things getting better in that regard. And the fact is that we did see gold come down quite strong this week. It's actually down. It was up to over 350 about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Now it's down to 1310. And the reason it's down to 1310 is that the U.S. dollar slightly got stronger. So this is a great indication as to what I've been saying to you all along. There's a direct correlation between the U.S. dollar and the gold market. And when the U.S. dollar is strong, gold is weak, and vice versa. So as we saw that the U.S. dollar strengthened a little bit this week, we saw gold sell off. I think that the sell-off was exaggerated because there's no way that type of move in the currency, in the gold, and the U.S. dollar would have that much effect on the gold market going down. Because the fact is that we've seen huge moves in the dollar gold scenario. When we first started recommending gold at the beginning of the biggest bull market of all time in 2000, gold was at $250. And the reason the gold was at $250 was because the U.S. dollar was trading at the highest level that it's ever traded at. I believe it was up to around 113 to 115. It was trading well over par. So when the U.S. dollar is very strong, gold tends to sell off. However, we've also seen when we started recommending gold at $250, we felt that the U.S. dollar was going to come crashing down, and a lot of that was to do with 9/11, and that's exactly what happened. And gold went from $250 up to $1,900 at the same time that the U.S. dollar had dropped from 115 all the way down to 72 cents. That's why you saw those gigantic swings in the gold market and the dollar, and those are the type of scenarios that we look for. Now, what we're looking at right now is a scenario where when President Trump got into office, the U.S. dollar was at 103. It rallied to 103. And gold had dropped down to below $1,100 to about $1,050. Now we're sitting with the U.S. dollar at 90 cents, so it's down 13 cents from when Trump got into office a year ago, and gold has gone from $1,050 to around the 13 to 1350 level. But the move this week in the dollar, or the news that Powell is going to raise interest rates 4 times possibly this year, well, the interest rates hikes are only 0.25%. So what are we talking? That over the course of the year that that we're going to raise interest rates by 1%? Big deal. That's no major big deal because there's no major inflation in the country, which is one of the reasons why you tend to raise interest rates. The fact is oil prices are still fairly low. Food prices have not gone crazy. There's really nothing out there at this particular point that is pointing towards substantial inflation. So an interest rate rise, and we've seen them happen in the States before, and has had really not too much effect on the U.S. dollar, and that's basically what I believe is going to happen. We're going to see 4 interest rate hikes, but it's not going to affect the dollar in a grand manner. So the fact is that as we're sitting at around 90 cents, there's got to be a reason why the U.S. dollar rallied to 103 when Trump got in, but now is sitting at 90 cents. And my feeling on that is that the U.S. tends to want a cheaper dollar, like Canada does, for export purposes. But the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency. So that's not a currency that they want to see totally fall out of bed. Don't forget, at 72 cents, we saw gold at $1,900, and we knew the government did not want gold at $1,900. That's why they manipulated the price down all the way down to $1,050. So there's things happening in the market right now, and they seem to be building a base. And I think gold is building a base. I think that the lows that we're seeing in the market are higher lows than we saw the previous time, which to me is a telltale sign that we're getting ready to see a rally in the market. The reason that I brought the analogy of gold to what's happening with the gun lobbyists and things like that is because it's starting to feel like there's going to be an issue here. I know what the attitude is of these militias towards the U.S. government. They think that the U.S. government is screwing them. They've stockpiled so much ammunition and so many weapons and so much food in these caves in different areas in the northwestern part of the United States, and it's very, very concerning. And always read those reports and wondered what in the world these guys were doing this for. These are all advocates of NRA. They're all NRA members, and they all love their guns. And as soon as they feel that this is being taken away from them, I'm feeling that there could be an uprising in the United States as a result of this. And that's another reason at this particular point why I'm buying some gold. We have gold opportunities where you can buy physical gold. Now, it's not for everybody because we don't sell smaller amounts. We sell kilos. And right now a kilo is selling for about 40,000 US. But the difference between buying gold through us and buying gold through anybody else is that we don't charge a commission and we don't charge a spread. So any dealer makes their money on a spread and commission. So if gold is trading at 1,300, you may be buying at 13 and a quarter, paying anywhere from $10 to $25 spread. We don't charge that at all. So when you buy a commodity like gold, you buy at the ask price and sell at the bid price. With my company, you buy at the bid and sell at the bid. We don't make any money on the spread, and we do not charge you a commission. And you can buy beautiful kilo bars of gold, and now is an excellent time to do it. The price has dropped to around $13.10. There's certainly enough situations in the marketplace right now that could rally the price of gold tremendously. If the U.S. dollar continues to fall off or stay on a weaker level, that's going to rally gold. And if I'm right about this NRA situation, we could see a gigantic breakout in the price of gold. So again, at this point here, all I want is for my clients to be safe and hold the type of assets that are going to give them that safety and the opportunity that when the market does rally again, that we make money in that market. You see how volatile the stock markets are. It's down 400 points on Wednesday, up slightly today, down 1,600 points for the month of February. The market was actually negative. Now, do I believe that that's going to continue? No, I think the market is going to rally only because it's the best game in town right now. But it's so expensive that most people are petrified, or a lot of people are petrified to trade the stock market at this level or buy individual stocks that are so highly priced at this point here. I believe it's a major mistake at this point to take that risk without waiting for some type of substantial pullback in the market. So again, at this point here, the NRA situation is a major concern to me. I don't put a lot of faith in what Donald Trump is saying. I feel really bad about that because I voted for him. I know him personally, not that we're friends or anything, but we've been on the same board for a national charity, and we've done work together. I play golf at his club from time to time, and I always respected him. I thought he was going to do a great job. But the lies and the deceit and the changing of stories and things like that is a major concern. His credibility is very low, and he's capable of doing anything to throw the country into a major tailspin. That's why I'm saying that to own gold at this particular point, I think is a very, very smart move, because he's like a loose cannon that terrible things could happen. Again, if you go back and look at what he said during his when he was trying to get into office, he was all gung-ho on NRA. His sons, himself, loves them, owns guns, protect myself, everything like that. This is great. And now he's going to take a different stance because it's the popular thing to do. I really don't think much is going to come from that. I believe that the NRA is too powerful at this point here, and very few are going to back off from it.
Connect with Harold. The telephone number 1-800-432-1022. 1-800-432-1022. Learn about investing in gold and the program Harold has in place. His website is rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Get our free weekly newsletter, the companion to the podcast, and you will see the information that we're passing on to you and more. You can go through it in minutes or spend hours. Rarecoloreddiamonds.com, 1-800-432-1022. In our newsletter, in the gold silver section, we have 5 charts that show that gold has been trading within a range of about $65. Now, gold tumbled after the Fed Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell opened the door to 4 interest rate hikes this year on the back of a strengthening U.S. economy. Another instance of the competing forces that have put prices in a range since the start of January. Well, Bill Bullion is under pressure in an environment where the global economy is recovering and interest rates are climbing. The reappearance of inflation, the prospect of wider U.S. deficits, and long-term declines in the U.S. dollar have lent support to the bulls. And one of the things that we can bring up from these charts, and we encourage you to read them over, well, bond yields are rising, and the Federal Reserve is set for further increases in interest rates. That may not necessarily spell gloomier times for gold. Now, bullion climbed during the previous tightening cycle from 2004 to 2006. Plus, the S&P 500 index has doubled in the past 7 years, and any prolonged reversal of the stock market boom could obviously increase demand for gold. And one of the things that we did hear yesterday, Powell spoke to Congress, and he said that he believes that we could see in the United States 3 hikes, possibly 4. He sees a strengthening U.S. economy, and he is obviously believing that Fed hikes are coming and coming very, very soon. So, Harold, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out, but we've seen it in the past, in the 70s when gold was on its major bull run, and then we saw it again in the 2000s when gold went from 250 all the way to 1920, from about, about the year 2000 to 2011. We saw interest rates go up, and we saw gold go up at the same time. So people have to understand that it does not necessarily mean that gold will not go up just because interest rates are going up. It's a thing that has happened in the past, and more than likely could happen again in the future.
Oh, you bet, Randy. It definitely could do that. Again, in the 70s, gold went from $35 when it was the gold standard to $125 when it started trading on the futures markets. That's when the Hunt brothers got involved in silver. That's when things were happening in Libya and Iran and that type of thing. And gold ran all the way from $150 to $850. Is the biggest move that gold had ever made. Silver went basically from $1.50 all the way up to $50. So during that particular time, we saw interest rates rising. Don't forget, in the early 80s, 81, 82, interest rates went to 22%. So you're right, gold did rally during those latter parts of the late 70s, early 80s, and then interest rates went all the way to 22%. And then gold started to sell off at that particular point, and that's when gold started to trade off of the dollar, and that's when I really started getting involved back then, and I've always traded gold ever since the 80s. So it's something that's in my blood. I watch it every day. I've caught the biggest bull market of all time, from $250 to $1,900. Very few could ever say that, and that was all done in Canada. On CHED Radio and the stations throughout Canada, we had our national shows. At first, people thought we were crazy recommending gold at $250. I remember Randy was working at CHED, and some of the stockbrokers that had shows there thought he was foolish for backing me and us doing our shows on gold. And who had the last laugh? It went from $250 to $3 to $5 to $1,000 to $1,900, the biggest bull market. And we have listeners to this show have literally made millions and millions of dollars on those recommendations. So again, every market has its time. There are geopolitical situations right now. Russia came out with a comment yesterday saying that they've devised weapons that nobody could deter. So the fact is that you've still got North Korea, you've got Russia, you've got Iran. The U.S. has got lots of enemies, and Donald Trump is the type of person that doesn't back down. So the fact is that there's lots of situations out there that could cause another major rally in gold. But don't forget, the last rally in gold started at 250 and went to 1900. If the government and the exchanges didn't raise the margin requirements, gold would have gone to 2500. So the fact is that we're now at 1300. If this next bull market, instead of at 250, starts at 1300, how high could gold go? We always felt that gold could eventually, with the right situation, be in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. Guys like John Embry and Butler and all those guys also felt the same way. Gold is the type of market that could just take off and run, like we saw for those 11 years that we traded it. And again, if we catch it at the right time, we could make a fortune of money. So again, I'm starting to think at this particular point, it makes a lot of sense to buy some physical gold, take it home with you. We'll ship it directly to you. We don't want any commissions, no spread. I'll even help you trade it, and we won't charge you anything for it. We want everybody involved in this next market in gold, and we do believe it's coming. And I'd rather be, a month early than a day, late in buying the gold market, because don't forget, gold can go up any amount of money. There's no limit to what gold can go up in one day.
1-800-432-1022. Connect with Harold. Find out about his gold program on the Drudge Report. The headline, as Harold was talking about it, Putin, I can beat your nukes. And Putin gave a speech, and he boasts Russia has developed an intercontinental nuclear missile that can't be stopped or shot down by any country's defense system. Putin said the rocket travels 20 times the speed of sound and has unlimited range. You can see that story for yourself. The Drudge Report, that is their major headline. DrudgeReport.com, Putin, I can beat your nukes. That's why we say have precious metals as an insurance policy in your portfolio at all times.
I got to tell you, Randy, when I heard the report, I got very, very concerned. Again, what is this world coming to? They're like the sleeping giant. They sit back and they've been investigated and probed and called liars and everything. And Putin is also the type of person that will never, ever back down. So he's quietly been doing this. And all of a sudden it puts them, if this is true, it puts them in a situation of superiority, and every country will fear them. So again, this is the type of world we're living in. Anything can happen at any time. We've got madmen that are running different countries like Russia and North Korea and Iran and all those places. It's a time to be very concerned. Again, for the first time, the NRA is being attacked, and that's that's a group that carries a lot of weight, and they do concern me. I've traded these markets for 35 years. I look for certain things that could tip a market, and what I'm starting to see happening now, and I really and truly believe that if the NRA is under attack, that these Aryans and these white supremacists and this militia that is within the United States could do some serious damage. And I am very, very concerned that it could be a repercussion of the NRA having the rights taken away from them. So again, we're moving into some very frightening times. And again, when those type of scenarios happen, there are avenues that you can take to protect yourself. Because if certain scenarios did happen, we saw back in 2008 how quickly the stock market can fall. Even with the plunge protection team that's present in the marketplace, the Dow dropped from 14,000 to 6,500. When those type of scenarios happen that are so extreme that they can't be stopped, it's too late. You can't get out of your positions in time, and you have no protection in order to protect your investments. So if you're in paper assets and you don't have investments like diamonds or stocks or not stocks or gold, physical assets you can literally sell, because you have them on you, you're putting yourself into a dangerous situation. And I do believe that we're heading into a very dangerous financial situation, a time that most of us have never dealt with before. So again, I'm strongly recommending protection at this point. We buy insurance on our home, our car, our life, our health, everything. But at times we don't protect our investments, and now is the time to definitely do that. Things look, very difficult to me, and again, they could happen and escalate very quickly.
On Bloomberg.com, they have a story about Putin and his new nuclear weapons. A warning to the West: listen. Putin telling the West to listen. Connect with Harold. Now is the time to listen to our podcast, read our free weekly material, the companion to the podcast, our newsletter, read it over, educate yourself. And if you do not have an allocation of precious metals, now is the time to do so. Harold has developed a new system. The program that he has in place is the best we have ever had, where you can be making money immediately. Find out more, 1-800-432-1022, rarecoloreddiamonds.com is Harold's website. Now, in that one story I was making reference to about gold in the 5 charts, higher inflation expectations due to rising oil prices have been supportive for gold, according to a report in February by Goldman Sachs, and they see $14.50 by the end of the year. So that would be a nice move from where we are today. Other drivers have been strong emerging market growth and some potential hedging demand in a choppy market environment. And JP Morgan also says rising inflation will benefit commodities, and that includes precious metals. But speak to Harold about the program that he has in place, 1-800-432-1022, rarecoloreddiamonds.com is Harold's website. And I'm not too sure, to be honest with you, when it comes to the economy in the United States, that things are as great as they make it out to be. Because if you take a look at what's happening, U.S. sales of new homes unexpectedly fell in January, as well for existing homes. Car sales are down. Sure, U.S. consumer confidence is at a 17-year high, and a lot of it is based on people seeing more money in their paychecks from the taxes that were changed in the United States. But still, I don't think things are maybe as strong as they are leading us to believe. And one of the things that we have to keep in mind, too, here in Canada, the Bank of Canada is on course to raise interest rates twice more this year. It aims to strike a balance between a stronger economy and a number of economic risks, including trade negotiations, NAFTA, and new housing regulations. But they're talking about Canada actually raising interest rates, which is, I think, based on our economy, very, very frightening. One of the stories that we have in our free weekly newsletter, I encourage you to read it over. Goldman Sachs says stocks may dive 25% if the 10-year yield, and we talked about the 10-year on the show last week, hits 4.5%. If it hits 4.5% in the next year or so, you could see a 25% pullback in the stock market. And right now, the 10-year was around 2.9. They're worried about it going over 3. I believe this morning when I was checking it out, it was around 2.8. But Harold, that's another thing that people have to realize. When you start borrowing so much money as the United States is doing right now, going out to the market, at some point people go, hey, wait a minute, I want, for me to take on that risk, I want higher rates. We see big deficits and we see a big debt in the United States for years to come. And we had a budget here in Canada during the week, and once again, we're seeing more debt, more deficits, and we're seeing it even in the province of Alberta. So it's a situation where we're having a lot of debt around the world, and at some point, it's a situation where if you do have that insurance policy in your portfolio, gold, silver, diamonds, we believe, Harold, that people will make out very, very well.
You bet, Randy. The thing is that You would think that if Powell is going to raise interest rates 4 times this year, that people would look to lock in rates at this particular point. But there's no way in the world that raising interest rates is good for the economy, because it's going to kill the housing market. Obviously, as rates go higher and higher, it raises the mortgage rates. So that's not a popular situation. And it's not popular in Canada. When they started raising interest rates, what was it, a year ago or in Canada, we were disgusted by it. We're saying, what in the hell are you guys doing, raising interest rates when you've got a very suspect real estate market that is totally speculative, a real estate market that the government had to step in and intervene because prices had gone berserk. And then, if you remember, they all of a sudden put a heavy tax on foreign investors buying Canadian real estate. So by allowing this to happen and allowing people to gamble with their homes because real estate prices were going berserk, now look what's happening. They're raising interest rates, which makes it way more difficult in order to afford a home. So that's going to kill home sales, which I know have fallen in the prime areas of Canada. And then on top of that, the reports that came out and said the Canadians are in the highest debt level that they've ever been in. So let's go ahead and raise interest rates and make it even more difficult, on our citizens. And that's what's going to happen in the States too. The fact is that if we're raising interest rates, it's going to kill the real estate market. There's no doubt about that. And if the real estate market, when that gets in trouble, almost all the industries, or so many industries, deal in real estate, whether it's mortgages, whether it's banking, whether it's building, whether it's interior design. All of those areas get affected when the real estate market falls. So again, it's going to be interesting to see if they continue to raise interest rates, what is it going to do to the economies? I believe it's going to stagnate them. I believe that it's going to have the opposite effect as to what they think they're trying to accomplish. So again, we've seen governments screw up before. They make mistakes all the time. So the fact is that you've got to use your own logic and decipher what these moves are going to do. Common sense tells you that if they're going to raise interest rates, you don't want to be in the real estate market. It's going to kill you. So again, we're going to have to see what happens. But the unfortunate thing is that, it's always buy the rumor, sell the fact. If you're going to invest and you see this trend coming, so if we're seeing that over the next 12 months, we're going to see 4 interest rate hikes, there's no doubt that real estate and other markets are going to fall. So you want to short those type of companies in the stock market. You want to place your bets or make your investments in these markets prior to obviously these things happening. Because once they already happen, it's too late. You've missed the move. That's why it's called speculation. You get your information, you decipher the information, and then you make a decision as to what you're going to do with that information. If the information is strong and you believe it's going to happen, then you place your bets in the market. I personally believe that a lot of these scenarios are going to blow up in their face. I do believe that by raising interest rates at this point, it's going to hurt the economy, not help it. So there are certain things that I see happening that I'll buy for my portfolio. One of them is gold. There's no doubt at this point here that if you don't own some gold right now, that you're leaving yourself naked in the market. So again, Randy, we'll certainly see what's coming up. Again, interest rates rises in Canada and the United States are going to be detrimental to both economies. And again, if that's going to happen, I basically know where I want to put my.
One stock that Harold recommended we stay away from during the financial crisis and continued to since was GE. And it's interesting to note that the manufacturer is on pace to clinch its 12th consecutive monthly decline, with shares closing out February below where they started. The S&P 500 index rose in 10 of those months. The year-long decline is the longest losing streak on record, according to data compiled by Bloomberg that goes back to 1971. The 12-month tally of GE shareholder losses, $135 billion. Obviously, a lot of money. And one of the other things that was interesting as we finish off the program today, the U.S. gross national debt spiked 1 trillion in less than 6 months. Of course, they were fighting over the debt ceiling. When that got settled, over a period of 8 weeks, the gross national debt jumped 640 billion. 4 weeks after that, it had ballooned to 723 billion. So you can see that in the United States right now, they do not have a limit on the debt ceiling. And that was a deal that was put together for 2 years by the Congress, the House, and the Senate, and Trump signed it. So you can see that the debt will just continue to rack up over time, over and over and over again. And at some point, it is just not sustainable. In fact, Janet Yellen, when she was the head of the Federal Reserve, said it's not sustainable. And Powell, when he was being interviewed yesterday by Congress, he came out and said that it is not sustainable. One other interesting note, we had a story last week that people in Silicon Valley who made about $500,000 considered themselves middle class and could not actually buy a home. There was a report that came out this week, and it was interesting to note. We have the chart. To get into the 1%, you need adjusted gross income of $480,000. That's what gets you into the 1% in the United States, except the 1% in Silicon Valley means you're a pauper. You only, you have to struggle by, and, you don't get Starbucks. Maybe you have to go to Dunkin' Donuts or something like that to get your coffee, and you're living in a van down by the river, and you don't live in a nice home. But hey, you're making $500,000 a year. It's a wacky world in the world of finance at times, isn't it, Harold?
It certainly is, Randy. Again, I'm just going to leave the show with this. I believe at this particular point that the NRA is so infuriated over what's been happening that they are going to whip their members into a frenzy. And some of these members are not all there. I'm very, very concerned about what's happening right now in that scenario. It's something that we have to continue to watch very closely. But again, it's one of the major reasons why I believe that you need to own some hard assets at this particular time. We could see some repercussions from these corporations that are dropping the NRA. They're just not going to buckle under and go away into this good night. They're just not going to do that easy. So again, I'm very concerned about that, but we'll continue to monitor and report to you every week. Again, there's just so much happening at this particular point. We're getting a lot of people listening to the podcast worldwide. And again, Randy and I love doing it.
Yes, we do. And Harold, thank you for your knowledge and obviously another great podcast.
It's my pleasure, Randy. I wish everybody a wonderful weekend and a very profitable day.
Harold's website, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. The telephone number to find out more about the gold program he has in place, 1-800-432-1022. 1-800-432-1022. Get our free weekly newsletter, and definitely take a look at having that insurance policy in your portfolio in the crazy financial and geopolitical times that we're in. That's it, another edition of the World Financial Report podcast with me, Randy Marshall, and Harold Siegel. We will talk to you next week.